Well, then why not heal him yourself?
Well, I have not, because we're operating on limited resources, and we were promised or told you may be able to help.
Everything comes at a cost. It's just whether you're willing to pay it. He flicks his hand, and Avachai changes back to not being a statue anymore. I saw her. It's Seraphina. She's changed. And then Uberma cuts him off, and he says, "Ascended. The tower needs to be let loose again. How bad is it?" And Nurum doesn't budge. Like, he doesn't flinch or anything. Bad, then. And Nurum looks at Uberma, and he says, "You never should have brought me here. What were you thinking?"
I thought they solved the issues. That's why we lost Fee.
Issues will never be solved unless we solve it for them. As the water sort of like ripples out from the center and then stills into an image. We see like the remains of this like large tree that has like fallen over. There's flesh corruption all over it, growing up it, flesh vines spreading out from it. And then we see this like landing, this like large sort of constructed like floor that's made of like a gold-looking material, like this long, almost kind of like a runway. And we see lots of bodies as the camera zooms out. We see lots of movement. They're liars. At the end of this runway, there seems to be some kind of like a platform or like an altar. There's something where it's built out of gold and has stairs going up two sides and sort of like meet in the center on this landing. And there's seems to be like people assembling. We see like one particularly intimidating looking mind flayer like settle in the crowd, like scooch some others out of the way. These glowing like white bluish eyes, this pale tentacles that are extremely long coming off of it, sort of like almost like drifting over the other liars in its general vicinity. We see another one step forward who's like particularly corrupted looking, like open wounds on its face and like lopsided. And then it turns its head to the side as the view like zooms in on it, and we see a human face on the other side of its face. And we recognize the face as that of Igrovi. And we see a man step out of the crowd, draped in gold. He's got blonde hair, elven features, pointed ears, very clean, like blue, ocean blue eyes. And he sort of like steps forward out of the crowd and turns back and looks at all of them kind of stoically, just like taking all the people in. The crowd starts to form, and there's maybe hundreds of these things. There's also, we see like a large, like dark colored and thin and tall mind flare. It's covered in black, like metallic like appendages that sort of like sprout out from its back and sort of like gesture towards others around it. Its face has like a helmet on, but it's like made of like technology. So we see like lights and like spinning pieces of machinery on it, and like gas being vented from it, and that kind of thing. And the guy in the gold steps forward to this altar. He reaches out into the air and plucks a golden spear, and then he like brings it down towards the altar and touches the landing. The semicircle like flickers like dropping a stone into a pond. There's like light coming out of it, and it's like shining on all of the liars. There's even some of them reacting to it. Like there's some of them like stretching out their tentacles and like holding out their limbs, trying to take in as much of the light as possible. as some figures step out from the other side of this portal. We see first a man step forward. He's holding something in his hands. We can't quite get a look at it, but he's like got both of his hands like bundled up to his chest. Very tall, thin human, very pale skin, gaunt. He's got dark bags under his eyes, like a bald head. He's dressed in like fairly fine black and gold robes. And he steps forward, and we see him, the guy that's dressed in the gold, step toward him, and they kind of like meet. And the tall, thin, gaunt guy hands him the thing that he's holding in his hands against his chest. He like hands it to him. It's like a bundle of cloth. And we see the guy in the gold like smile, takes this bundle that he's holding, and he holds it against his own chest. And he looks down at it and kind of grins. And then we see him like hold up a finger, like push it through the cloth. You don't see, but we hear like the cooing of a baby. So we hear like this baby kind of like just like being uncomfortable as he like opens the cloth, and then he grins, and then we see him like grab something and he holds it out and drops it. The camera focuses on this tiny little trumpet that just sort of like falls and bounces along the gold. The trumpet's silver and like skitters along the gold and comes to a rest. The guy holding the baby, now dressed in gold, turns back around, starts to walk towards the crowd. The mind flayer that we recognize as a Grovey steps forward towards the thin, gaunt man, and he raises a hand and puts it on his shoulder, and then a Grovey drives a dagger through his throat. And there's like a and he like just leaves it there, and he lets go of the guy's shoulder, and the guy like stumbles off to the side, and there's like blood pouring out of him, just all over the ground, and he just like he falls down to his knees and then chokes up a few spurts of blood, and then goes limp on the ground. Agrovi just stands there looking at this other figure that has come out behind from the portal behind that guy that just died. This other figure strodes into frame for the first time, and we see what it's riding. This skeletal horse. It's bleached bone, so like really dried bone. It just sort of like steps forward. As it does, the horse's like front hooves start to just like scatter, like it falls apart, basically hooves first, until like it's just scattered bones all over this gold platform. The person riding it is still standing there wearing their golden armor, as they sort of like come off the horse as it starts to fall apart. And then they keep stepping forward, and as they do, the armor starts to fall off in chunks. This dark black and gold armor starts to corrode and strip off of its body, and underneath it we see just pure shadow. We get like a cut to the guy in gold who had taken the baby over to the crowd, and we see him hand it to someone in the crowd, another mind flayer, probably the one with the very long tentacles that's white, the glowing eyes. But then like we just get a zoom in of that mind flayer's face as we see like its tentacles open up, and then there's a crunching sound. The baby's cooing stops. And then the guy who was dressed in gold walks back up towards this shadowy figure that is starting to take form at the front of this altar. And he holds a hand out, like to shake hands. This being of pure shadow reaches out and they shake hands. We see tentacles from the gold guy come out of his wrist and start to wrap around the shadow and like work its way up the arm of the shadow. And then he looks directly at the camera. I see you. I see you. I see you. The pool of water just splashes out everywhere. Ubermar starts convulsing, like he starts foaming at the mouth and going into like a seizure, and he collapses on the ground. And he's like shaking, like he's just like, and there's like foam coming out of his mouth. Everyone in the room starts to panic. The lights all go dark. The room becomes utter darkness. And we see, like, and we zoom in on, like, Uberon, who's, like, shaking, convulsing on the floor. And then he goes still. From the darkness, from the shadows in the room, we see a form start to coalesce. As death itself breaches the scrying and enters the room with you all.